tax man.
Yeah, I am the tax man here at AM560 the Answer.
Answer.
This is the IRS Radio Hour with Deborah Schreiner, Jim Leahy, and you, the listener.
And now, here's that man with a head just crammed full of knowledge, Mr. Know-It-All.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Know-It-All, the segment where Attorney Stephen Leahy gives us his infinite wisdom on all things taxes. And this week, we are going to be talking about...
I got the question. Someone asked me, when's the best time for me to solve my IRS problem?
Oh, that is a good question.
You know, and here's generally the answer is today, right now.
Yeah, but some people don't have the money to pay for it, right?
But that's not really solving your IRS problem. Paying is not really solving your IRS problem. But this is what I wanted to talk about, really. I wanted to talk about the timing. Because what happens about this time of year, right, we're in November, and people come to see me and they can we get this? I want to get a deal done now. Okay, so... we talked about this before, that you have to be in compliance in order to get a deal with the IRS. And so you come to see me, and I can work out some sort of an agreement with the IRS for last year. And then I ask you, well, have you made your payments for this year? And they say, well, no, I haven't really made my payments for this year. Well, then you're not really in compliance. Even if you have all your tax returns filed, the first thing the IRS is going to say, well, you're not in compliance. We're not going to work with you here. And even if I could get an agreement with you, what's going to happen is, or for you, right, I get an agreement for you, and then we go into next year, and then you're going to file your taxes next year, and you're going to owe for 2019, and you're not going to be able to pay it, and now the deal that we made, because remember, every deal that you come up with the IRS, part of that deal is that you're going to stay in compliance. That means you're going to file your tax return on time and pay your taxes on time going forward, and if you don't, it's going to violate the agreement, and it's going to default. Okay, so today you come to see me. Tomorrow I get you in an agreement with the IRS. Next April comes along, you file your tax return, and you don't have the money to pay, and you have now violated the agreement. Okay, so the best thing to do in a situation like that is try to protect yourself and get into next year. Okay, because now, next year, I can do your tax return early in the year, January, February, get your tax return filed for 2019, determine what you owe for 2019, and wrap that into all the other taxes that you owe. So any agreement that I come up with will include that year. Okay, and then you could start being in compliance for next year, because you're going to start the year fresh. Right, so now you can start paying your quarterly taxes next year. And that's going to make it so. And a lot of times I can make it so you're not going to pay any more, because a lot of times you're only going to pay what you can anyway. Maybe you can't pay anymore. So whether I owe $100,000 or whether I owe $150,000, what I'm going to pay every month is not going to change. Okay, so this is why you have to time it correctly. It's so important that when you're so first you get your transcripts, gives you the map of what's going on, and then understanding the way the IRS works and all of these other agreements that are part of any installment agreement, working into your strategy. So when you're coming up with the strategy to solve your IRS problems, you're not just kicking the can down the road, you're actually going to solve the problem.
And it's just that cascading tax issue we talk about again and again, where it's just becoming worse and worse. And again, what is the one thing the IRS looks for?
I don't understand. Tell me what.
Compliance.
Compliance is the secret ingredient to solving IRS problems.
And I'm not an attorney, so let me just disclose that.
You're absolutely right. Compliance.
But if you're compliant with how you're making your payments, right? If you've skipped a year or two or seven,
and it happens.
I know. And then all of a sudden you become compliant from there on. Well, hey, you never know. This is why it's so important to call Attorney Stephen Leahy, because the statute of limitations, from my understanding, you're the attorney. I don't understand all this.
I don't want to call it the statute of limitations. It's called the CSED, or the Collection Statute Expiration Date. It operates very much like a statute of limitations.
Okay, but the CSED date is how long? 7 years for
It's 10 years from the date of assessment. And that goes into the deal too, okay? So you have to know all that stuff when you're coming up with what kind of remedy you're going to have.
Yeah, so you go have 7 years, all right? You don't pay, and then all of a sudden you start paying, and then they come after you and go, well, hey, 15 years ago, you owe us money. Well, guess what? You might have a case.
So one thing I always tell people is, the number one thing to do to protect yourself is file your tax return. whether you owe money or not, even whether you have the money to pay them or not. So a lot of people don't file their tax return because they say, well, you know.
Can they file it without paying?
Absolutely.
So file it and be like, oh, I don't have the money, but I filed it. Here you go.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
that makes sense.
And that starts all of those important dates that we talk about, when they can when they can audit you. All of that starts.
All that makes
and then
sense.
it'll be gone. Now I owe them money. And here's another important thing. Not filing a tax return, it's a crime. Okay? So not owing the IRS, not a crime. Okay, so if I file on time, if I file my tax return, I'm following the law and I'm not committing a crime, even if I owe them money. But if I owe them money and then I don't file my tax return, now I've committed a crime, and I can go to jail for 1 year for every year that I do not file my tax return.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All. I know it answered my question. And if you have a question out there and are looking to get it answered, anything about taxes or anything about the IRS, you can give Opem Tax Resolution a call, 312-664-6649, or visit chicagotaxteam.com, or you can go to facebook.com/Opem Tax Resolution and put your question on their page, and they'll be able to answer it for you. But anyway, there are ways of getting your question answered, so don't sit in the dark and don't let this issue cascade any longer. Oh, also, too, listen to our sponsors and come right back on AM560
The Answer.